My friends, I have the pleasure of bringing you some tests with a Nishika N8000.
Nishika released the N8000 in 1989 after buying stereo camera specialists Nimslo Corp. The N8000 is a fixed focus camera with a quadra lens system whose photos can be used to create lenticular images that appear 3D. Shutter speed is locked at 1/60th of a second. The camera weighs 915 grams thanks to a couple of metal weights added to make it feel more impressive. The N8000 is basic, featuring a film advance lever, a distance guide that looks like an LCD but is really just a sticker, a shot counter window, hot shoe mount, a battery check button, and film rewind crank. On the front of the camera is the aperture selector, 30mm quadra lens system, the viewfinder and light sensor, and the shutter button. At the back of the camera are the viewfinder and film memo holder. On the underside of the N8000 is the tripod mount socket, a rewind release button, and a compartment for 2 AA batteries to power the low light indicator. Pull up the film rewind crank to open the back of the camera. To load a roll of 35mm film, place the film roll in the film chamber on the left, with the protruding end pointed downward. Pull the film leader to the right and fit the end of it into one of the slots in the film take-up spool. Use the film advance lever on top of the camera while ensuring the sprocket teeth are properly pulling the film through by the perforations. Then you can close the back of the camera and advance to the first frame.
My friends, I have the pleasure of bringing you some tests with a Nishika N8000. This thing does 3D shots, and in the modern age of digital scanning, we can create a GIF as well. That's fascinating. I'm going to try to find some unique places and figures such as the statue behind me to take some interesting 3D shots. I'm just kind of throwing myself into the fire with this camera. I don't know too much about it. Let's give it a whirl. It's got 4 30mm lenses in the quadra lens system. I can change the exposure for sunny, somewhat cloudy, or fully cloudy. No idea what that button is on the top. Maybe I'll figure it out, maybe not. There's an LED looking display on top, but it looks kind of like permanently just displaying this kind of physically imprinted text. It says ideal 3D distances, background 25 feet to infinity, midground 15 to 22 feet, and foreground 6 feet. So those seem to be instructions for a 3D image. Doesn't look like anything will light up there. Does take 2 AA batteries. Let's give it a shot.
Now, I don't have a lot to say about how this camera works. It's much heavier than it needs to be and has very few actual features. Let's talk about the images. I might have moved a little bit while snapping this one, as the statue kind of moves side to side rather than twist on spot. This set shows movement in the background more than anywhere else. I was lucky it was a bright sunny day when I shot these, since the camera's aperture is only about f8 to f11. These shots work well when there's something in the foreground as well as the background. Here's an example of a flat plane behind the subject. Objects wobble a lot when they're on the edge of the frame, yet somehow the cyclist came out all right. There's a bit of movement in objects when they're a street width away from you. Here's another with foreground and background elements. It seems to work well. There's not much to see when shooting directly into the sun and getting flares. The effect here isn't really working well when I'm facing directly toward the building's corner. It's only the sides that are flaring out. Close-ups can work pretty well, especially with longer elements extending beyond the frame. This one's one of my favorites. Stick 'em up or get zapped. I've captured a cheeky little Mona Lisa down there. One of the best of the bunch. This one's for my fellow Bond fans. It seems like isolated subjects work well in this format. It seems like distance in reflections moves a lot due to math that's well over my head. And another case of edge wobbles. Lots of fun to be had with the Nishika N8000.